Let's talk about Monstrous. My boyfriend has a Redbox account with a ton of points racked up, so every week we'll rent at least one movie that we found on the Redbox app. Most of the ones that we find aren't films that I've seen marketing for, which doesn't always mean that they're going to be bad. This week it was between Sharkbait, which we'll still get to at some point, and the film Monstrous, the one we ended up watching. Right away from reading the synopsis, I had assumed that this would be just another paranormal movie with a smaller budget, and to my surprise, I was wrong. I would categorize this one more of a psychological thriller rather than just a horror, but regardless, I think the overall idea was pretty original and that the ending was more satisfying than I was expecting. I am going to give a spoilers warning. I feel like it's kind of hard to talk about this one without going into depth a little bit about it, because I feel like a lot of my opinions definitely correlate with some of the spoilers, so I'm going to give a spoilers warning. If you don't want spoilers, I would recommend not listening to this one. This film is seemingly set in the 1950s in California and is about a mother and a child who escape an abusive relationship and try to start over in a remote sanctuary by a lake where things quickly start to fall apart for them both. Throughout the film, we're made to believe that Laura, the mother and the main character's ex-husband, committed some type of domestic crime against her and their son that warranted them to move away to safety. Laura begins to experience hallucinations, and her son begins having night terrors, claiming a monster or a pretty woman in the lake comes to visit him every night. Laura brushes this off, but starts to also see something reminiscent of a sea monster herself. Cody is constantly drawn to the lake and talks about the pretty woman in the lake only wanting to help them. Laura doesn't want to play into it and tells him to stop every single time he brings it up. This is where we start to see her character fall apart even more. After a day of binge drinking and quitting her job, Laura goes to pick Cody up from school, but he's nowhere to be found. There is some foreshadowing throughout the film up until this point that suggests Laura's not in her right mind. She frequently looks at a photo of her grandmother standing in front of what is now her car, and her perspective of reality seems to be skewed when it comes to understanding the period of time that they're in. Police show up to the school where Laura's frantically searching for Cody and take her into the police station. Confused and upset, Laura demands to see Cody. The social worker delicately tries to ask Laura about an accident that happened a year ago with Cody in a swimming pool while in her husband's care. Laura explains that she was out shopping and came home to Cody at the bottom of their pool, but that she was able to resuscitate him and everything was fine. From the social worker's expression, you can tell that she feels sorry for Laura, and it's pretty heavily implied that Cody was never able to be resuscitated. Laura frantically leaves the police station, and this is where she's snapped back into reality. She is not in the 50s, but she's actually in the present day and was using that time period as a coping mechanism for losing her only son. And because her grandmother had always talked about how much simpler the time was, that's why she relied so heavily on the 50s. We soon find out that after this, the pretty woman in the lake is actually Laura's grandmother trying to assist Cody into the afterlife. It's a pretty heartbreaking moment for Laura to have to mentally let go of her son, even if it's true that he were never there to begin with. I'm not gonna lie, I did tear up at this part when he was walking off into the lake holding his grandma's hand. Unfortunately, the monster in the beginning didn't look the best, but considering that in the end it's all a metaphor for Laura's grief, it doesn't really take away from the film. I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I think Christina Ricci did a great job and did carry a lot of the film, considering there's a significant lack of events in the middle. Plot overall was a bit thin and could have used a little more character development when it came to the mother-son relationship and the stakes that were at play. It didn't feel like there was much at risk even in the beginning when we believed that an actual monster was coming into the house, and I think in the end that did make the climax feel a little bit dampened when we got there. Regardless, I thought this one was alright, and I rated it a 2.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. If you like psychological thrillers, I would check this one out. The overall idea is pretty interesting, I just don't think it was executed the best. Let me know if you guys have seen this one and what you thought about it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and you can follow me on Letterboxd at Ashley Film. Thank you for watching. Bye.